What's going on, people? So we're back with another triple-way or three-way camera test. This time we have the S23 Ultra, we have the new Google Pixel 8 Pro, and also, of course, we're gonna chuck in the iPhone 15 Pro Max as well. We're gonna compare the camera and see who comes out on top. Let's get on with it. All right, so we're back in the studio to review the photos that we've taken and videos as well to see how well they've performed against each other. But first thing first though, before I get into it, I just want to let you know that I've seen your comments and I know that people say all these things about preferences and all that stuff. And it's exactly that. They all take amazing photos and videos and so on. And it's just a matter of preference and what you prefer. And this is all just for fun. So don't get too crazy in the comments at each other, even about any comments that I make here, because you can decide for yourself after you watch them. But yeah, we've gone outside to take a few things and we can compare them. To start with, I usually pick the ultra wide and then work our way up to the zoom levels. We have the iPhone 15 Pro Max on the far left and the new Pixel 8 Pro and the Samsung S23 Ultra. And if we look at this photo here, we can see different ways in which the phones are handling the sky color, even the bridge color, and the building and the level of brightness and contrast in here. So we look at the 15 Pro Max, things look a bit dark, but I kind of like it. It's very natural. The water looks natural as well in terms of what we actually saw. In fact, on the 15 Pro Max and the S23 Ultra, the Thames looks exactly like that at that time of the day because it was sunny, so it's a lot brighter than usual. Pixel 8 Pro seems to think it's darker than it should be, whilst keeping things on the far end, on the range, a bit brighter. So the building's brighter, the bridge color is brighter, so it's going on the lime green area rather than the darker green. So the 15 Pro Max deals with the bridge color very well. The building looks natural as well, although a bit dark, but that's what I actually saw when I was taking this photo. So I think for this one, I would say the 15 Pro Max handled this very well. Moving on to the wide camera, so the main camera lens here, we can see what we have here again. So this is what most people would use on daily basis, for example. So again, I think what we can see that's becoming a theme here is the way that the iPhone handles the colors. So when we look at the Thames, we look at the bridge on the right side, the colors look accurate compared to the other ones. S23 Ultra looks a bit warmer, also makes it look a bit more saturated compared to everyone else. And the Pixel 8 Pro looks a bit more blue and cold, hence why the Thames looks darker and that color as well. But let me know what you think, as always, in the comments below. Next, we're looking at the zoom. So we start with 2x zoom across the board because we can do that. There's been an update on the S23 Ultra, which allows us to tap and do that as well. So the quality here is very, very mixed bag here. So we look at the detail in the building because I picked this area this time compared to where we normally test things because the building is so structured and has a lot of detail in it that you start to notice where your camera's failing. So we look at the iPhone 15 Pro Max, things are darker. In fact, if you look at the stairs on the far end, you can't really tell that the stairs, well, I can tell that they are side wall of the stairs rather. So the Pixel 8 Pro does very well at making everything nice and balanced. So the colors, the temperature, the brightness level across the board looks good there. I can even see some of the built-in windows right at the top by just above the clock as well. The S23 Ultra starts to look hazy, which is interesting because this is something I usually edit when I edit on Lightroom. I dehaze my photos to get rid of that sort of whitey, cloudy look. And yes, we did wipe all the lenses at all times, so no one was touching it. So, but yeah, you can see the differences here in terms of the warmth, the darkness, the contrast, the way that it all handled and detailed. But for me, I really like the Pixel 8 Pro here. Punching it a bit further, we're looking at the 5x zoom capabilities. On this one, the Samsung S23 Ultra doesn't have, as far as I'm aware, an optical zoom at 5x. It becomes digital in between. So we go straight to the 10x for the Samsung S23 Ultra. By the way, if I'm doing that bit wrong, let me know in the comments below. We look at the 15 Pro Max. It looks really good in terms of the color and everything else in terms of it's darker again, but that's the natural look because the sun is shining from a different angle, which means that bit there should actually be a bit darker. We look at the Pixel 8 Pro, it's starting to compensate for that darkness and making things a bit brighter, but still keeping the level of contrast and dynamic range there, which is good. I'm not mad at that at all. 10x zoom is incredible. It still looks really good. It's nearly unbelievable that a phone shot that because everything is still in detail. Even the side of the clock, you can still sort of see the detail in the clock there and what time it is a little bit there. You can even see the window above the clock as well to see what's going on there. So if someone's actually standing there right now, you'll be able to see what they're doing. And the bell right at the top of the tower, you can still see what's going on there as well, which I think is very impressive. I'd love to have 10x zoom across the board here. I think iPhone users would love it if they actually try it because they're all getting happy about 5 times at the moment. Moving on to portrait mode, this is something people love. I'm not a fan of portrait mode on phones at all because it doesn't look real. It looks too artificially processed, but we'll still talk about it anyway. And we have here 15 Pro Max at 1 times, Pixel 8 Pro does it at 1.5 times, and S23 Ultra at 1 times. And what you notice here is the way they process the colors again and the hazy look on the Pixel 8 Pro and the S23 Ultra. On the 15 Pro Max, it looks accurate, it looks very good. The jumper itself, which is what I'm wearing right now, is actually this color black and it's handled that very well. And I like the look of that. I think it looks natural and I could post that. And it handles the edge detection as well. My hair looks really good. We look at the Pixel 8 Pro, it struggles a bit with the forehead where the light's hitting my forehead. It doesn't know what to do in terms of differentiating my forehead from the bright light that's hitting the lens. The jumper is still black, looks good, but it's not as black or dark, natural black, that tone, that shade of black that it normally actually is. And then we look at the far right to the S23 Ultra. This is quite disappointing because it's very hazy, it just looks cloudy and the edge detection is not quite there. The colors are not quite there as well, the way that I like it to be. It's just a mixed bag of oversaturation and stuff like that. So let me know what you think. Then we go to 2x zoom. This is interesting because a telltale sign here is when you look at the colors again. So when we look at the iPhone 15 Pro Max, look at the play button on my chest. That red actually looks like the red that's right here. So it looks really good there. The edge detection works really well as well. The colors are good. I love the way the shadows balance between the right side of my body and the left side of my body. Using the light, the direction works really well there. The other two, you can see that all this process is going on is thinking, do we want to make this picture brighter because it looks a bit dark, or do we want to preserve detail and so on? Now you can see where it's getting confused there because it starts to get a bit noisy. The Pixel 8 Pro just looks a bit too noisy. The jumper is starting to have bits in it, like pixelated bits. Edge detection above my hair, forehead looks over the top as well. S23 Ultra just looks oversaturated. If you look at my neck and my face, it just looks very, very orange. And then one more, iPhone 15 Pro Max can do 5 times on the portrait mode. And this is my favorite one because it just looks really good. The balance in the shadows, the way that the lighting is not affecting the quality of the detail, it just looks really good. The edge detection looks good as well. Just looking at that, it's just something that I would post. And then to take it a bit further, I wanted to see how they handle a backlit image in portrait mode. So this is 1 times across against the standard mode. You can see that the 15 Pro Max is very dark, which is understandable because it's backlit, but it manages to keep things very detailed and just normal, which is what I really like. You can then bring out the detail in editing tools if you want to do that. It's up to you. You can reduce the shadows or you can bring out the brightness, exposure levels, entirely up to you. We look at that Pixel 8 Pro, it's starting to look pixelated. It's just like hazy looks. You can't really see the detail in there. And then we look at the S23 Ultra, it looks a bit cold, mixed with saturation, oversaturation at that. If you look at the little bits on the fence, it just looks too yellowy, basically, and it's just not there. But that one as well, if you're good at editing, you can dehaze it and make it look a bit better. But straight off the camera, I think the 15 Pro Max looks good here. Then we go to the 2x zoom, and you can see the way that, again, the lighting on the S23 bounces off the water, hits behind by my elbow, and then you see the way that it actually makes use of that light. It looks much better in this 3 times mode. The Pixel 8 Pro is still struggling here. It's still not the best. Looks a bit, it's like ghosting going on. It's not my favorite one out of the 3. The 15 Pro Max though, at 2 times, it just looks like it was shot on potato. I don't know what's going on here. It just looks so noisy. It just lacks detail. It looks like someone's put a film over the lens as well. So it just doesn't look right there. So I wouldn't play with backlit image in that mode there. And then 5 times zoom looks great again, even with backlit imagery. Although here, I would say the sun was starting to go in at this point, but it still does well at handling the whole thing. The detail in it looks really good. Even the writing on my trousers, Adidas, looks great. Then we look at the maximum digital zoom. So 25 times, 30 times, and 30 times. I think the best one is a 30 times zoom because look at the detail on the writing below the clock. You can almost make out what that is if you understand what that's meant to mean. Let me know in the comments below if you know what that means. Then we look at the Pixel 8 Pro. It's starting to look like oil painting if you look at the windows below the clock itself. Then we look at 15 Pro Max. The same again, it just lacks detail. It's just, I probably would never use that. But it's just for fun to see how well they do when we really punch into the maximum digital zoom they can do. And then we look at the S23 Ultra, which can do that 100 times space zoom. I can't even get my word out because it's ridiculous. Look at that. You can still tell what's there. You can still see the detail. So it does what it's meant to do, but no one's ever going to post that. Next is RAW photography. They can all shoot RAW mode, which is pretty cool, but I thought instead of going across all of them and comparing them, I'll just show you what it looks like with the iPhone 15 Pro Max, because the kind of filter or LUT or editing that you do is up to you. So this is what I would do to mine. So if I did it across the board, they will all look the same basically. So it doesn't really make any sense comparing them. But I just thought I'd show you anyway, because you can do RAW photography, which means you retain more detail for you to then edit later on and make it your own, do whatever you want to it. So that's a fun one to do as well. Next up, we talk about selfies. We all love selfies, right? So the 15 Pro Max, the Pixel 8 Pro, the S23 Ultra, they treat your selfies in different ways. So the Pixel, they pride themselves in getting accurate skin tone and all that kind of stuff. But here though, the 15 Pro Max looks accurate in terms of the skin tone, although they're not all bad. One thing I've noticed though with the Pixel 8 Pro and the S23 Ultra is the way that they love to brighten up the images at all times. I don't know why. So the way the 15 Pro Max looks good in the way it handles the shadows. So you can see the side of my face where the sun's coming in, and the other side you got nice shadow. It looks really nice, like almost like studio lighting of some sort. And then my jumper as well looks, the black color that I've actually got, it looks like that. And the red on the YouTube logo looks the way that it should look. And then we look at the other two. It's too bright, overly bright. I know it's a bright day outside, but it hasn't managed the exposure, the ISO. It hasn't managed that very well in my opinion. There's a lot of processing going on. But it looks good. If you're gonna take selfies anyway, they all look good. Nice and bright, shows the smiles and all that stuff. And that's what you want at the end of the day. But one thing though, let's go wider. So if you have more people, you can take pictures, selfie with more people in your shot. So here again, it's the same story across the board in terms of what happens with just the normal one times selfie mode as well. So you see that the colors are the same, the shadows, etc. So let me know which one you'd go for from the three. And then we take it further to portrait mode on the selfie cameras, because you can take portrait shots on them now as well. And then the differentiation here again is the colors, the way it handles it, and the way it handles the shadows. I prefer the 15 Pro Max out of all of these. The hedge detection looks good across the board. I think they look really good. It's able to differentiate between my hair and the tree behind it and all the things that's going on around me as well. So bravo. And then we go to macro shots. This is something we don't really put in a comparison usually, but I thought why not? Because they can all do it. But this one, the most pleasing one for me is the iPhone 15 Pro Max. I love the shadows in it again. The detail in there is really good. There's some chromatic aberration across the board. That's fine. You're getting macro shots here. So you can see those detail there, the stem in the middle and stuff. The details are great. So I think if you have any of these devices, you're going to take a good macro shot regardless. On the S23 Ultra, there's no dedicated macro mode. So you just have to use the ultra wide angle camera and get close as you can. The other two have macro mode. So as soon as you get close enough, it activates, or you can turn it on manually or off as well. Then we start to look at low light imagery. So starting with the ultra wide angle lens. So the Pixel 8 Pro does really well at making sure that everything's nice and bright and still retaining detail. Night photography or low light photography is something that the Pixel 8 Pro, the Pixel series have been really good with anyway. So I wasn't too surprised there. The S23 Ultra has a bit of this hazy look on the ultra wide. You can see the lens flare from the lights, from the background there, from the light that's coming from the end of the tunnel. And then on the 15 Pro Max, same again, things look a bit dark. Detail is not there though. If you look at my face closely, it looks like it's airbrushed and painted. So it wasn't able to retain as much detail. Then we look at the one times, so the main camera. We can see the way it works across the board here again. So there's a lot of detail on the Pixel 8 Pro. I think it takes it home there for me. The rest of them just have this like airbrushed looking effect across there, and it just doesn't look as good as the other one. But again, let us know what you think in the comments below. Then we zoom in at 2 times. This I expect us to lose detail and quality and stuff like that. So I think out of this one, the 15 Pro Max weirdly has a natural look. So skin tone, the level of brightness and everything else. The other two tends to make everything as bright as they can be and just bring out the brightness. If you see my shadow behind me, the Pixel 8 Pro is almost non-existent and the S23 Ultra is very faded. So I think there, the 15 Pro Max does a good job. And then we go 5 times on the 15 Pro Max, 5 times on the Pixel 8 Pro, and then 10 times on the S23 Ultra. S23 Ultra is just a no-go for me, it just doesn't look good. I think all of them, they don't really look good at this point in low lights. The 15 Pro Max still kind of retains enough detail in that zoom. Now it's time to talk about videos, which I'm excited about as well. Videos are good across the board. I think they all shoot really good videos in terms of handling the lights, the dynamic range, the shadows, the colors, etc. Although we'll talk about the color bit in a bit, you start to notice where they handle the colors a bit differently when they're a bit closer to the lens. But I think they're really good. I think regardless of which one you go for here again, the videos are great. But this will be no comparison if we don't compare them. We're not here to shout praises for all of them. We want to see which one's better than the other, right? So the S23 is very close to the 15 Pro Max. The 15 Pro Max handles the color of the Thames very well. We look at the bridge, the color's accurate there as well, and the bus color. The building right at the end though, the details are there for the 15 Pro Max and the details are there for the S23 Ultra, but I think the Pixel 8 Pro struggles a tad bit. Even the reflection on the building towards the right, you can see it's doing bits with that. I don't know what it's trying to do there. And I even pointed to the sky to see the way it handles the differentiation between the sky color and the leaves as well, in terms of the green on the leaves. And you can see the difference in the colors here. One is very green, one's a bit lime, one's a different shade of green. So they all handle it differently. So it's just a matter of preference. Which one do you prefer? I don't know. I think maybe the 15 Pro Max here looks really good in terms of the way it just differentiates both, and the colors look great as well. At one point, it just looks like they've all been shot on the same camera, which is interesting. Until you then go towards Kalik here, you can see the lens flare coming through on the Pixel 8 Pro, and the rest of them just handles that lens flare very well. There's barely anything on the other ones, but the Pixel one shows it a bit more compared to the others. It's a bit darker on the S23 Ultra in terms of the foreground and the background. Then it balances up slowly as you go past there. And then the lens flare comes through again on the Pixel 8 Pro. And then we zoom in to see, again, the Thames colors different across the board. So you pick which one you prefer. It's colder on the Pixel 8 Pro, it's warmer on the S23 Ultra, and it's a lot more natural on the 15 Pro Max. So 15 Pro Max is doing a great job there. And then we look at backlit images. Again here, the details are starting to go, since seeing a bit of ghosting on the S23 Ultra. Then I saw this boat come in. I thought, let me compare the way they handle colors. And to my surprise, they all look very much the same in terms of the yellow on the crates on the far end. You can see them just looking really nice. The red on there as well looks great. Looking at the sky, I love the way they handle the sky. The differentiation between the sky and the green leaf, again, different color tones. You can see that the color on the 15 Pro Max looks a bit more darker, it's a bit more red, the way that should be. And the Pixel 8 Pro and the S23 Ultra were more on the orangey side, which is interesting. It shows you the same color, different ways it's been handled by the phones there. So again, it's just a matter of preference thing. And then we go across, we zoom in and punch in. The writing on the boats looks very clear on all of them. The building in the back looks darker on the S23 Ultra, although more natural, but you can tell that they're all trying to expose for what's going on the boat, so you can see what's in the foreground and not on the far end. And on the Pigeon, what's interesting is when we go and see the feathers, the detail on the feather is quite interesting because the 15 Pro Max and the Pixel 8 Pro handles that really well. The S23 Ultra though, not so much. Then we punch a bit further, we can see the way they handle things again here on that lens. And you can see that they have different level of exposure. So the far right, so we look at the S23 Ultra, is so dark there. It couldn't handle the light coming in. And then we look at the Pixel 8 Pro. Again, just looks natural there for me. I love the way the Pixel 8 Pros handle that. Then we look at the 15 Pro Max. It just looks a bit blurry, lacks detail. Then for color comparison, we look at the bust, the open top bust on top of the bridge, and the bridge color itself looks colder on the S23 Ultra, weirdly. And the 15 Pro Max handled that as well in terms of the actual color looks good. The open top bust looks more red compared to the other ones. They have different shades of red across the other ones, but it looks better, in my opinion, on the 15 Pro Max. And you can see here again that the details are different across the board and level of exposure and which part's exposed versus the other one. The 15 Pro Max looks natural all round. It's not too bright, it's not too dark in this situation, but you can't really see what's going on in the windows above the Big Ben clock. And same goes for the Pixel 8 Pro, on the darker side, but more detail in there. And then we can sort of see the bell right at the top. Nothing on the window above the tower. But on the S23 Ultra, everything looks bright and still kind of retains some detail. Again, exposing for what you can see rather than trying to balance shadows and all that jazz. It's just like, you know what? Let me just give you a bright video so you can see everything. And that's exactly what it's done. Again, let us know what you think. And then let's go there, maximal digital zoom. When you punch them really hard, I don't even know why we're doing this for this one because they're all useless, but it shows you the level of detail that you can still get in some of them. You can even see the bird that's hanging on the wall on one of them, which is kind of funny. Like right in the window there before that bird flew away on the Pixel 8 Pro. You can sort of make out what it is there compared to the rest of the cameras. And this is where it starts to become tough to try and balance your handheld. So if you're trying to film something in this mode, good luck trying to lock in your target whilst you're still trying to zoom and film at the same time. So, and then you're trying to look at the boats, you can see some of the detail, you can see some of the lettering and some of on the Pixel 8 Pro versus the other one. But again, this is just a matter of fun sort of exercise comparing them, but I don't think they really matter, to be honest. Onto cinematic mode. This one's very tough to decide which one I prefer because they're all kind of similar in the way they handle edge detection. You can see my beard. They're all doing a bad job at trying to differentiate which one's the background, which is my beard and all that kind of stuff. And that shouldn't be a difficult thing to do. But I'm still in awe of the technology here because they've come far. And for them to be able to do this digitally whilst you're filming live, I think it's incredible. If we take away how blurry they are and the way it handles the detection, the edge detection, then it still looks okay. The S23 Ultra, not so much. If you look at my face at some point, you can even tell that that's my face completely, if I've got dimples there or not. The other one still kind of brightens it up and stuff. It's just a mixed bag of results across the board. And then you start to see loads of lens flare that comes in on the Pixel 8 Pro and S23 Ultra, but the 15 Pro Max does really well with lens flare. And at one point, S23 Ultra has a completely blurry face that you can't even make out what's going on. Yeah, that reminds me of Black Mirror when that lady blocks the partner from seeing them, all of that stuff. Like, that's making me feel weird. But in terms of how steady it is and everything else being cinematic, it works really well. I think cinematic mode is not something you use every day or in every scenario. It's something that you pick your battles in terms of when you actually use it to make it make sense. So this is a front-facing camera on all the smartphones, and we're shooting at the 1x on all of them just to make it fair and square. And all shooting at 4K 30 frames per second. So let us know which one you think looks better on all of them. Just whip it around a bit because the light was facing me. Now it's backlit, so we get a bit of a flare on the pixel there, and then whip it around. Ooh, flare on all of them actually. But yeah, look at that. Let us know what you think. Yeah, I'm gonna have to review this back on the computer and see which one I prefer, but they're looking good. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Then onto stabilization. Again, here I can really differentiate much because they all did really well. When stabilization was off, it handles things very well. You can see that I'm running, and Kalik is running as well with the cameras, and it just handles things very well. It looks really good. And then when you put the next level of stabilization on all of them, the quality itself drops depending on which one you're using. So on Pixel 8 Pro, for example, it drops it to full HD. 15 Pro Max is 2.8K, and S23 Ultra is still 4K. Although when you see the result though, it doesn't look like a 4K video. You can start to see some ghosting. It's very not as detailed as possible on my face. This is where you see most of the downside to them. So you have to, again, pick your battle in terms of when you use that super steady active mode. Then we'll look at focusing. When it comes to focusing, all I'm interested in here is how quickly the focus, how accurate the focus in different scenarios. So with tests, when it's nice and slow, it does really well. When it comes to how quickly it focuses when things are moving very quickly, I think they all do really well as well. Although here, the 15 Pro Max seems to be able to handle that focusing speed very well, regardless of how quickly you do it or how slowly you do it on different subjects, whether it's my face, my hand, or whatever it is. It just picks it up very well, which is pretty neat. One thing that's special about the device is that they all have their special features. So for example, on the iPhone 15 Pro Max, you can shoot log formats to external drive, or, you know, when you shoot 4K 30 locally. And with this, it just means that you can shoot flat videos, and then that way you can then add your own LUT or editing afterwards and bring out extra detail, add your own cinematic look the way you want afterwards. And I think that's really cool. And then when we look at the Pixel 8 Pro, it has its own AI features that could be more useful to me, I think, rather than log, because I tried shooting log and it doesn't work in all scenario. But the features that the Pixel 8 Pro has, I can actually use that on day-to-day basis. For example, audio announcements, you know, when you're in a noisy environment, it allows you to isolate your own voice so you can still hear what you're saying and you can hear what you've recorded. So for example, if there are buses, stuff going on around you, you'll be able to decrease those things and balance it out to make sure you get the best audio possible for your video. And then when we look at the Samsung S23 Ultra, this one can shoot 8K videos. And with 8K videos, it means, for example, here we've downsampled it to 4K, we're still able to get really good detail from that 8K video that was shot on a smartphone that small. I think that's incredible. So they all have their little thing here and there that makes them special, and it just depends on what you prefer and what matters more to you. Having said that, let's move over to low light in terms of videography. Across the board, again, I couldn't really tell which one I wanted to go for or pick, because you get a mixture here of the backlight at the end of that tunnel there, and I'm telling you, it was so dark in this tunnel, and they've all done a great job at bringing out the brightness and still be able to see what you've shot and still use it. But here, if you look at the play button on all the chest, this is where you start to see the difference a little bit, because the iPhone 15 Pro Max does well at keeping that color in check. The Pixel 8 Pro does well as well, but the S23 Ultra starts to look a bit washed out and just a bit overblown and stuff like that. So I think when it comes to low light videography, Pixel 8 Pro does really well, followed by maybe the 15 Pro Max and the S23 Ultra last there for me, I would say. So let me know what you think in the comments below. And that's about everything that we've done today in terms of the comparison. Again, like I said, this is for fun. It's nothing scientific. It's nothing like that. So I hope this doesn't actually affect your buying decision, but it's just for fun to see which one you prefer as a community. So let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you like videos like this, make sure you like and share it and subscribe if you haven't already. And I shall see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.